With 10 miles of red dowry prepared, I waited for my future husband to come receive me, but the heir of Marquis Wu'an carried over a white sedan chair to fetch the bride, simply because his cousin living in the Marquis's manor was gravely ill, and a master said she couldn't see red. The heir had men wrap the bridal sedan in white cloth overnight. He said, "It is just a sedan chair. What does the color matter? What is important is that you're marrying me, isn't it? You've always been sensible. Surely you won't fuss over such a small matter." Dressed in all red, I didn't even spare him a glance, turning around to walk toward the young general in the crowd. "Jiang Nuo, I heard you rode a sweat blood horse today. It could serve well for a wedding pickup. Would you be available to perform the wedding bows and marry me?" Miss Bad News. "The heir of Marquis Wu'an has brought a white sedan chair to fetch you." My personal maid Rua rushed in yelling, her eyes red. Instantly, the noble ladies who came to add to the dowry fell silent, then exploded into an uproar. What is going on? On such a joyous day, how could they bring a white sedan chair? Is this a wedding or a funeral? Isn't this slapping the general's manor in the face? Is he here to fetch the bride or to ruin the marriage? I yanked off my veil. "What is happening?" Then frowning, I walked outside the general's manor. A crowd had long since gathered, packed tight. Seeing me appear, they all shouted, "The bride has come out." Why isn't the bride covering her head with a red veil? Outside the general's manor, the bridal sedan that should have been welcoming the bride was instead wrapped in white cloth, placed lifelessly at the gate, forming a stark contrast with the red firecrackers scattered on the ground outside. The heir is actually using a white sedan to fetch the bride. What is the meaning of this? I spoke coldly. Gu Shuyu stepped forward looking apologetic. "Jinshu, my cousin, is seriously ill. The master at Sion Temple said she cannot see red, otherwise there will be a bloody disaster." I had no choice but to switch to a white sedan to fetch the bride. The color of the sedan doesn't matter. What matters is that you're marrying me. Isn't that right? You've always been sensible. You should be understanding. Understanding. Since the founding of our dynasty, no one has ever used a white sedan to fetch a bride. It is not like we're holding a ghost marriage. Cannot see red. I glanced at Gu Shuyu, looking at the white showing from his collar, surmising that he must have even changed his groom's robes to white. I took a step back. The general's manor is marrying off a daughter with an 8-bearer sedan and 10 miles of red dowry. I absolutely cannot leave in such a manner. If I am carried out in a white sedan, how will the girls of our Pingnan general's manor face the world in the future? Since the heir cares about his cousin's illness, why not wait until your cousin recovers to discuss the wedding date again? Gu Shuyu got anxious and chased after me. "Jinshu, why do you have to care about such a trivial matter? What importance is the color of the sedan? Is this the Shen family's upbringing? You can't even tolerate this slight grievance." I turned around. "Heir, watch your words. The ceremony isn't complete, and I'm not part of the Marquis of Wu'an's manor yet. Why should I endure your family's mistreatment?" Just as I was speaking, my stepmother hurried out from the backyard. "Oh my, the heir is here. The auspicious hour is fast approaching. Why hasn't Jinshu gotten in the sedan chair yet?" Gu Shuyu smiled and said, "Mother-in-law is indeed the reasonable one." My stepmother wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief and looked at me. "We'll all be family in the future. You're marrying the heir, so his cousin is your sister too. Just treat getting into this white sedan chair as saving a life. You were born a noble lady. You should know that a woman follows her husband after marriage and treats him as heaven. Don't tell me you're refusing to marry just because of a sedan chair." A hint of a smile played at the corner of her mouth. My heart went cold. She wasn't my birth mother after all, but for the legitimate daughter of the general's manor to marry in a white sedan chair, if word of this got out, it would be a scandal for the whole clan. As the mistress of the house, how could she agree to it with such a clear conscience? Gu Shuyu smiled and said, "See, even mother-in-law has no objections. Jinshu, hurry up and get in the sedan chair." Rua rushed out to shield me. You people are bullying her too much. Making the young miss marry in a sedan chair like this on her wedding day. Just wait until the general returns, he'll make you pay. My stepmother's face turned cold. You're just a servant. How is it your turn to speak, men? The auspicious hour is almost here. Help the young miss into the sedan chair quickly. The wedding matron hurriedly came forward to support me, but I shook her off. Mother, if I sit in a sedan chair like this to get married today, the general's manor will lose all face. You'd better think clearly, little sister hasn't discussed marriage yet. If the reputation is ruined, how will she marry into a high-ranking family in the future? When that time comes, and my brother-in-law's family also sends a white sedan chair to pick her up, how will you handle yourself then, mother? Stepmother flew into a rage. What nonsense are you spouting? Are you cursing your sister? A white sedan chair is for the dead. You know full well your sister is in poor health, yet you dare say such things to curse her. I smiled. So mother knows a white sedan chair is inauspicious. I thought mother was too short-sighted and didn't know that white sedan chairs are for the dead. The people who followed the heir to welcome the bride hurriedly stepped forward and said, Heir, the auspicious hour is fast approaching. If the bride doesn't get in the sedan chair soon, it will be too late. Gu Shuyu looked at me. Jinchu, it is time to get in the bridal sedan chair. I took a step back. Heir, please forgive Jinchu for not being able to get in the sedan chair. Let us discuss the wedding date again after my father returns. Gu Shuyu was anxious and angry. Our two families set the wedding date long ago. How can you say you won't marry just like that? Do you know how long our Marquis manor has been preparing? I pointed at the bridal sedan chair outside. It is just the effort of a bolt of white cloth. How long does that take to prepare? Someone suddenly rushed in from outside, panting. Heir, the cousin miss has arrived, as they spoke. Several maids and nannies supported a young lady as she walked in. It was Gu Shuyu's cousin, Song Shinner, with a pale little face, gasping for breath with every step. She walked up to us. Gu Shuyu held her with heartache. Shinner, your health is poor. What are you doing here? Song Shinner looked at me, her eyes brimming with tears. Sister-in-law, don't blame him. It is all because of me that cousin caused such a scene. I came specially to apologize. The master said that while I am ill, I absolutely must not see red. That is why cousin came up with this method to welcome the bride. I am truly sorry, sister-in-law. I interrupted her. Miss Song, don't call me that randomly. I haven't entered the gates of the Marquis of Wu'an's manor yet. I am not your sister-in-law. You can't see red. So are the new bridal room and wedding hall in the Marquis of Wu'an's manor all white? Is your Marquis of Wu'an's manor trying to hold a funeral? My words made the people from the Marquis of Wu'an's manor lower their heads. It looks like I guessed right. Song Shinner coughed lightly. It is all my fault. If my body wasn't so weak, I wouldn't have dragged the manor down to this point, and cousin wouldn't be in such a difficult spot for my sake. Miss Shen, don't blame cousin. If you want to blame someone, blame me. I'm kneeling to you. Please get in the sedan chair. We can't miss the auspicious hour. In front of everyone, she knelt down weakly, tears sliding down her face. It is Shinner who has dragged down Miss Shen and cousin. I beg Miss Shen, for my sake, please get in the sedan chair and marry into the Marquis of Wu'an's manor. She looked like she was about to breathe her last, pitiful and delicate, breaking the hearts of the onlookers. Oh my, there was no other way. It is only right for the heir to feel heartache for his sister. The miss of the Shen family is being a bit too petty. Miss Shen is too petty. The cousin miss of the Marquise's residence has even knelt down to beg her. What more does she want? There were also some different voices. What do you mean too calculating? If you were made to sit in this sedan chair when you got married, wouldn't you find it unlucky? Didn't you hear, for the sake of the cousin miss, the Marquis of Wu'an's residence even used white in the wedding hall? Caring this much about a cousin, even placing her above the future wife of the heir, if you say there is nothing going on between this cousin and the heir, I don't believe it. I reckon the heir likes her. Doesn't it always happen in storybooks? Cousins pledging their love to each other in private? Gu Shuyu was heartbroken beyond measure. He helped Song Shinner up, letting her lean lightly in his arms, and looked at me while suppressing his anger. Shin Jinchu, have you made enough of a scene? Shinner dragged her sick body here to beg you earnestly for your sake. What more do you want? Don't tell me you won't marry just because of a sedan chair. With you being so narrow-minded and calculating over every little thing, how will you be worthy of the position of the mistress of the house in the future? How will you be a good wife for my Gu clan? Song Shinner's face was deathly pale, and looking as if she were about to collapse, she said, "Cousin, don't blame Miss Shen. It is all Shinner who has burdened you, Miss Shen. If you really mind it, I can move out of the Marquise's residence. That way, Cousin can also marry you and bring you through the door with great fanfare and dignity. As long as Cousin is well, it doesn't matter what happens to me, Cousin. Your marriage is the important thing. Just let me move out of the Marquise's residence. You've taken care of me for so long, I can't keep overstaying my welcome at the Marquise's manor on such a joyous day. I've made things so awkward. How could I possibly feel at ease?" Gu Shuyu pulled her into his arms, shouting, "Quick, call a doctor!" Then, eyes red, he roared at me, "Are you satisfied now? Will you only be happy once you've gotten Shinner killed?" He looked at me furiously. "Cousin can't stand the sight of red. She risked her safety entering the manor just to persuade you, and she only fainted because she saw you dressed in red. If you still want to marry into the Marquise's manor, go change into a white dress immediately." "Shinner risked her life for you. Can't you just consider her for a moment? If you want to marry, get in the sedan immediately. If you don't, I will turn and leave, and there will be no medicine for regret for you later." I looked at his heartbroken appearance and took a step back. The heir and your cousin are so deeply in love, Jinchu truly cannot bear it. Upon careful thought, this blind marriage of ours is indeed not a good match. It is better to cancel the wedding here and now. From now on, we marry whom we please and have nothing to do with each other. Jiu Shuyu's face turned livid. "Fine, Shen Jinchu, don't you regret this? Let's go. The marriage between the Wu'an Marquis Manor and the Pingnan General Manor is hereby cancelled. Miss Shen, if you regret this later, don't come begging to me." Song Shinner slowly woke up in his arms and said weakly, "Cousin, don't quarrel with Miss Shen over Shinner. It is all Shinner's fault. Just let Shinner leave the residence. As long as you and Miss Shen live in harmony, Shinner's death is not to be pitied." Gu Shuyu gently coaxed her, "Don't talk nonsense. I promised I would take care of you, so I will take care of you for a lifetime." With that, he carried Song Shin out of the general's manor. My stepmother chased after him, shouting, "Heir, how can the wedding be cancelled? I'll persuade Jinchu to change into white clothes right away." All right. After saying that, she turned around and stared at me. "If the heir of Marquis Wu'an breaks off the engagement with you, how will your sisters in the clan get married in the future? You are trying to be the death of your sisters. Even if you don't want to marry, you can't ruin your sister's future. If others find out that the Shen family daughter had her marriage called off on her wedding day, who would still dare to come to the Shen family to propose? It is your father who spoiled you. Now that the general is not here, it falls to me, as your mother, to teach you the rules. Someone take the eldest Miss's wedding dress off and change her into white clothes. She will be married off in the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn." The female servants in the manor heard the stepmother's order and immediately rushed up to hold me down. "Eldest Miss, you'd better hurry and change your dress." Saying that, they were about to tear my wedding dress off. Ruer rushed up to protect me. "Stop. How can you treat the eldest Miss like this?" The next second, she was kicked away by a sturdy servant woman and fell to the ground. I lashed out with a slap. "Insolence. I am the eldest Miss of the General's manor. How many heads do you have that you dare touch me?" My words stunned the servant woman. She weakly loosened her grip. I took a step forward, eyeing them coldly. "Even the likes of you dare to be so presumptuous. You'd better see clearly, this household bears the surname Shen. Think hard about who the real master is," my stepmother sneered. "You really are something, eldest Miss. No matter how noble you are, when it comes to marriage, it is the order of parents and the word of the matchmaker." Your father set this marriage for you, regardless of what the heir is like. You have to marry him. Just because the color of the sedan chair isn't to your liking, you make a fuss about canceling the engagement. The Shen family certainly didn't raise a daughter like this. Although your father is far away at the border, he has worried his heart out for you. As the mistress of the house, I absolutely will not allow you to run wild here. Do you know that if you offend the Marquis manor, it will affect your father's career? How can you be so selfish as to disregard the entire Shen clan? Besides, what is wrong with marrying into the Marquis manor as the principal wife? You'd have fine clothes and rich food, a life of luxury and status. Are you really going to pick and choose? I smiled mockingly. Mother, it is precisely for father's sake that I dare not agree. Such a disgraceful affair. If word got out, wouldn't everyone gossip about the Shen family, saying that in order to social climb, we've thrown away our dignity entirely? When the Marquis of Wu'an's manor sent the betrothal gifts, they said they wanted to marry a legitimate daughter of the General Pingnan's manor. Although mother is a second wife, sister counts as a legitimate daughter too. Since that is the case, why not let sister marry into the Marquis's manor? As soon as the words fell, my legitimate sister rushed out from behind, screaming, "Shen Jinshu, dream on! I won't marry! Who wants to ride in that kind of dead man's sedan chair to get married?" Mother, I don't want to marry. Stepmother comforted her in a low voice. Don't worry. How could mother possibly let you marry? She looked at me. Jinshu, you are the eldest sister. You haven't married yet, so how could it be sister's turn? This marriage is naturally yours. Outside the door, the people from the Marquis of Wu'an's manor were still shouting, "Madam Shen, is Miss Shen going to marry or not, after all?" Gathered around me were a few noble ladies who wanted to speak out against the injustice for me, but in a matter like this, they had no way to help. If father couldn't come back to make the decision for me, I couldn't disobey mother's orders. My gaze swept over the people watching the drama nearby, and a smile appeared at the corners of my mouth. Mother, the one to marry into the Marquis's manor, is the general's legitimate daughter. If I marry someone else, then the heir won't be able to marry me anymore, right? Mother was stunned and said dazedly, "What are you saying, Mary? What person? You're already wearing the wedding dress now. What nonsense are you talking? If you're so capable, find someone to marry you right now." I walked towards the person in the crowd wearing red robes and a jade belt, with a gold crown binding his hair, and stood still in front of him. "Jiang Nuo, I heard you rode a Fergana horse today. It could serve well for a wedding procession. Would it be convenient for you to perform the wedding vows with me and get married?" General of the Flying Cavalry Jiang Nuo and I were childhood friends, yet we bickered every time we met. Today is my wedding, and he was actually willing to part with that precious sword I had fought him for since childhood as a wedding gift. For the sake of the sword, I think he is 1,000 times better than Gu Shuyu. Jiang Nuo was dressed in brocade, his right hand gripping a horsewhip and tapping it against his left palm. He raised an eyebrow at me. "You better have thought this through. Once you marry me, you can't regret it." I took the red veil. I'll never regret it. Jiang Nuo laughed aloud, took the red veil and covered my head with it, then swept me up into his arms. He instructed the people around him, "I'm getting married today. Everyone come to the general of the Flying Cavalry's manor for some wedding wine." His sweat-blood steed stood outside. He lifted me onto the horse with him. "Jinshu, sit tight. We're going home right now." The bright red wedding dress wrapped around the red hem of his robe as the steed galloped away. General Pingnan's people were in a chaotic mess, and the group from the Marquis of Wu'an's manor waiting to receive the bride was also in an uproar. "Madam Shen, our two families have a marriage contract. Your general's manor cannot just break the agreement like this." My legitimate sister was crying and making a scene. "Mother, I wouldn't sit in this white sedan chair even if I died. Don't even think about making me marry into the Marquis's manor. That cousin, or whatever, clearly has something going on with the heir. The heir treats her like his heart and soul. I'm not marrying him." Suddenly, a stern shout came from the doorway. "What are you making a fuss about?" It was General Pingnan, who had rushed back travel-worn my lord father. He frowned, looking at the white sedan chair outside the door. Isn't today the day of Jinchu's wedding to the heir of Marquis Wu'an? How come there is a white sedan chair in front of the manor? Who is holding a funeral? Such lack of manners. Why is it stopped in front of the general's manor? Ruer hurried forward, knelt down with a thump, and said, "General, you're finally back. You have to stand up for the eldest miss. The Marquis Wu'an's manor is bullying us too much. They actually carried a white sedan chair to pick up the eldest miss for the wedding. They said the cousin at the Marquise's manor can't see red, so they changed all the wedding procession stuff to white. I heard even the wedding hall at the Marquise's manor is draped in white cloth. How is this a wedding procession? This is trying to drive the young miss to her death. They even forced the eldest miss to change into a white dress to get married. If the eldest miss marries over there like that, how is she supposed to survive?" The madam actually sided with the heir too, having people strip the wedding dress off the eldest miss and change her into white clothes for the wedding. It forced the eldest miss to hurriedly marry herself off, and only then did she leave with the general of agile cavalry. Father flew into a rage. Preposterous. He shattered the table beside him with a palm strike. Stepmother stepped forward, and father slapped her across the face with a smack. "I married you to take care of my daughter, and this is how you take care of her." Stepmother covered her face, speaking with a sobbing tone. "General, what is wrong with Jinchu marrying into the Marquise's manor? This is the marriage you arranged." Father let out a cold laugh. "If it were a proper wedding procession, naturally there would be no mistake. But with the Marquis of Wu'an's manor acting like this, you still force Jinchu to marry. What are your intentions? If the one getting married were Jinyu, would you still act like this?" Mother cried. "But the one decided upon back then was Jinchu." Father looked at her with disappointment. When the betrothal was arranged back then, it only said the Shen family's legitimate daughter, but didn't specify who. Since we need to give the Marquis of Wu'an's manor an explanation, then I will make the decision. Let Jinyu marry." Stepmother's face turned deathly pale, and she knelt down with a thud, her eyes full of tears. "General, Jinyu is still young." Father stared at her until she lowered her head. "Jinyu is already 17. She is not young anymore. Haven't you been looking for a match for her, saying she could be married off as soon as a good son-in-law was found?" Jinchu married the general of the flying cavalry, so now Jinyu is the only legitimate daughter left in the manor. How can the general's manor break its promise to people? Stepmother shook her head. No, Jinchu's marriage doesn't count. How can a girl just decide to get married all on her own? Someone spoke up and interrupted her. "That is not right. Just now you clearly said that if the eldest miss could find someone to marry, you would agree." "Yeah, just now you were forcing the eldest legitimate daughter to marry into the Marquise's manor. How come when it is your own daughter's turn? You're unwilling. Now you suddenly can't bear to part with her. Sure enough, since she is not your own flesh and blood, you just don't love her." The stepmother heard this, her face turning red then white. She just knelt on the ground, wiping her tears, and said, "General, I have always loved that child Jinchu as my own flesh and blood, so how could I harm her on purpose? I was just afraid of offending the Marquise's household, which would affect your career, General. Besides, they used a white sedan chair to fetch the bride. How can this be allowed? Jinyu is the legitimate daughter of the General's manor. After all, General, you can't let her marry like this. The Marquise's household must come to fetch the bride according to proper etiquette. Otherwise, where will the General's manor put its face?" The onlookers nearby laughed out loud. "Madame Shen knows to fetch the bride according to etiquette now. That is not what she said just a moment ago. This stepmother is truly heartless. It won't hurt unless the needle pricks one's own skin. The marriage with the Marquis of Wu'an's household had been made official before His Majesty. It was too late to back out now. She had to marry." The servants of the Marquis of Wu'an's household hurriedly ran back to report that the master of the Shen manor had returned. The old madam of the Marquis of Wu'an immediately ordered people to carry over a dozen chests of apology gifts, saying they were to apologize to the Shen family's daughter. Since they had been rude today, these gifts would serve as additions to the young Mrs. Trousseau, and the wedding date would be discussed later. The stepmother looked at those dozen chests of jewelry and silver, her mind racing as she felt tempted. Finally, father looked at the stepmother. If Jinyu is willing to marry, these will be added to her dowry. If she is unwilling, these will be returned, and I will go to the palace myself to plead guilty. The stepmother pressed down firmly. General, rest assured, I will talk to Jinyu nicely and definitely make her nod. Father looked at the people from the Marquis of Wu'an's manor and said, Go back and tell your heir if he wants to marry my daughter, he must come fetch the bride according to the rules. Immediately after, father rushed to the general of the flying cavalry's manor. By this time, Zhang Nuo and I had already performed the wedding bows. Ruer had come along too, and as soon as she saw me, she wept and said, Miss the General has returned to stand up for you. I looked at my travel-worn father, my eyes reddening. Daddy. Zhang Nuo stepped forward. Father-in-law, please accept this son-in-law's bow. Father had watched him grow up and naturally knew him inside out. He patted his shoulder. If you don't treat Jinchu well, my spear won't spare you. Even if you run to the ends of the earth, I'll find you and settle the score. Zhang Nuo grinned and said, Rest assured, father-in-law, I will definitely treat Jinchu well. Father stroked my head. Dad came back late and let our Jinchu suffer grievances. I've already had people bring the dowry over. This is the dowry your mother and I prepared for you long ago. Now that you're married, even if it was rushed, the proper rites cannot be dispensed with. 120 loads of dowry were carried all the way from home into the manor in a mighty procession, and Zhang Nuo and I performed the wedding bows again in front of Daddy to get married, completing the 3 letters and 6 rites, and became true husband and wife. I heard from the old maids in the house that stepmother and my younger sister talked all night long, detailing the countless benefits of the Marquise's manor. Once she enters, she'll be the mistress of the house, that cousin will be hers to handle however she likes, and no one will be able to touch her position then. Besides, if she marries into the Marquise's manor, father will prepare the same dowry for her too. Thinking of that 120-load dowry and the hereditary title, Jinyu was immediately tempted. Father had warned the people at the Marquise's manor, and they agreed to welcome the daughter of the Shen family in again with formal rites. However you looked at it, this marriage was a good deal, so Jinyu nodded in agreement, happily waiting to become a bride. On the day of my 3rd-day visit home, it just so happened to be the day of the grand wedding between Marquis Wu'an and the general's manor. Marquis Wu'an's household brought the bridal sedan chair to receive the bride, with drums beating and trumpets blowing all the way in celebration. Jinyu looked at me smugly. Sister, even though you were pampered and precious growing up, so what? You were still humiliated and married off to some petty general. Once I marry into the GU family and become the mistress of the Marquise's household, you'll have to bow to me when we meet. I'd like to see who dares say I'm not as good as you. Then I smiled faintly. Then, I wish you your heart's desire, sister. Heh, Marquis Wu'an's manor is full of snakes and monsters. A spoiled idiot like Jinyu, who knows nothing thanks to stepmother, will probably be eaten alive without even her bones left behind. I stood behind the crowd, watching Gu Shuyu beaming with joy as he welcomed the bride out. Jinyu was incredibly shy under her veil with Gu Shuyu's support. She got into the bridal sedan and was carried into the Marquis of Wu'an's manor. Zhang Nuo's parents passed away early, so there weren't so many rules. After accompanying me back for the return visit, knowing my father missed his daughter dearly, he stayed with me at home for a few extra days. Who knew that just after Shen Jinyu got married, before the 3-day return visit had even arrived, she came back weeping and wailing, throwing herself into her stepmother's arms the moment she entered the door. Mom, I want a divorce from Gu Shuyu. He tricked me into marriage. He actually wants to marry Song Shiner as an equal wife. The stepmother was shocked and hurriedly called the servants in to ask what was going on. It turned out that on that day, after the wedding bows and entering the bridal chamber, as soon as Gu Shuyu lifted the veil and found that the bride was actually Jinyu, and not me, He immediately turned pale with shock and said he wanted to call off the wedding. Jinyu tugged at him, weeping pitifully. "Husband, we've already bowed to heaven and earth and entered the bridal chamber. Everyone knows you married me. If you go back on the marriage, Jinyu can only dash her head and die in the Marquis of Wu'an's manor. Elder sister has quite a temper that day. When she saw you leave holding cousin in your arms, she married the general of the flying cavalry right then and there. Now that she is someone else's wife, it is useless for you to want to break off your engagement to marry her. Besides, when the betrothal was settled back then, it only specified a legitimate daughter of the general's manor. I am also a legitimate daughter. Since your Gu family gave the nod to marry me in, I am your wife. I was forced to marry here just to save face for both our families. And I've already suffered enough grievances if husband is displeased. Jinyu can only take 3 feet of white silk and end it all." Jinyu was petite, and now crying so pitifully, looking both delicate and charming. Gu Shuyu's heart softened immediately, with a soft, warm beauty in his arms since he'd married her. He simply went with the flow, entered the bridal chamber, and they became husband and wife. But right in the middle of the night, someone started banging on the door and making a scene outside the courtyard. It was Song Sheener's maid. "Heir, Miss Cousin has fainted. Heir, quick, go take a look." Disregarding that it was still his wedding night, Gu Shuyu shoved Jinyu away, rushed out of the inner courtyard, and went to Song Sheener's room. Song Sheener's face was deathly pale. She had just woken up, her face covered in tears. Seeing Gu Shuyu, she just wept pitifully. "Cousin, I didn't mean to ruin your wedding night. It is just, my heart suddenly hurt so much, I couldn't breathe. I fainted just now, and I was afraid I'd never wake up again, so I wanted to see you one last time." After saying this, she collapsed, weeping into Gu Shuyu's arms. The nanny beside Song Shiner looked full of pity, and right in front of Gu Shuyu, she knelt down with a thump. "Your heirship, just consider it this old servant begging you. The young miss has been bedridden with illness, and recently it has gotten worse. She even coughed up blood the day before yesterday. This servant is truly afraid something bad might happen to the young miss. Her parents are gone, so if something untoward happens, she won't even have a place for her spirit tablet. Your heirship, please just marry the young miss. Give the young miss a status. That way, even if she dies, she'll have a place to belong." After saying that, she threw her arms around Song Sheener. "My poor miss, I watched you grow up. I really can't bear to see this." Song Sheener shook her head. "No, I can't put cousin in a difficult position. Even if I die, I'll be nothing more than a pile of yellow earth." As she spoke, she covered her mouth and collapsed into her arms, coughing. Gu Shuyu couldn't stand it any longer and pulled Song Sheener into his arms. "Sheener, don't be afraid. I'll marry you as an equal wife tomorrow and give you a proper status." Jinyu woke up and learned that Gu Shuyu was going to marry Song Sheener as an equal wife. Her world collapsed. She looked at Gu Shuyu with reddened eyes. "We only had our wedding night yesterday, and today you want to marry an equal wife. Where does that leave me? That cousin of yours keeps saying she won't live long, but she has lived in your house for all these years and hasn't actually died. What an act! She has been plotting to marry into the Marquis's manor all along, hasn't she?" Gu Shuyu couldn't take it anymore and slapped Jinyu across the face. "How could you say that about Sheener? She is innocent by nature, not that kind of scheming person." Jinyu covered her face. "No wonder sister would rather break off the engagement on the spot than marry you. She saw through you long ago." Gu Shuyu said impatiently, "Whether you are willing or not, my mind is made up. I am marrying Shiner today." The Marquis of Wu'an's residence didn't make a big fuss about taking a second wife, only inviting a few tables of friends and family. Just as the MC was chanting husband and wife bow to each other into the bridal chamber, Jinyu rushed in. "Hold on." She strode forward, disregarding Gu Shuyu's grim expression, and sat down in the main hall. "Husband wants to take a second wife, but according to our dynasty's customs, a second wife is still a head lower than the main wife. She ought to serve tea to me, the main wife, first." Gu Shuyu shouted sternly, "Do you have to make a scene at a time like this? Jinyu was not afraid in the slightest. Husband is taking a second wife the day after our wedding. You've thrown away all your dignity. So are you really afraid of me making a scene? For the sake of your cousin, you brought a white sedan chair to the door during the wedding procession. The GU family has long become the laughingstock of the entire capital. And now you're afraid of me making a joke? Song Shinner lifted her veil and stopped Gu Shuyu. Husband, let me serve tea to sister. The servants immediately placed a kneeling cushion and brought over hot tea. Song Shinner held the tea unsteadily and raised it. Please drink the tea, sister. Jinyu stared at her silently. The tea was boiling hot, scalding Jinyu so bad, she jumped up and shoved Song Shinner away. Are you trying to scald me to death, you vicious woman? Song Shinner fell to the ground, tears falling. If you don't like me, sister, just say it straight. Why say your little sister harmed you? I don't even have the strength to hold the tea. How could I harm you? Ju Shuyu scooped Song Shinner up, glaring fiercely at Jinyu. You vicious woman, go back to your own courtyard right now and reflect on yourself. If you still don't repent, maybe it is time someone else took the position of mistress. That night, Gu Shuyu stayed in Song Shinner's room, and Song Shinner, who had been at death's door, unexpectedly showed no signs of serious illness at all. The next day, she looked much more spirited. The nanny wiped her tears. Miss has been cured of the sickness in her heart, and her body has actually become strong. It truly is the heir's credit. Song Shinner leaned into Gu Shuyu's embrace, saying shyly, in the future, Shinner will definitely take good care of her health to bear children for cousin. Jinyu sat desolately in her new room all night. Early the next morning, she heard news spreading from Song Shinner's side that she had recovered. She knew full well it was all a trap, and was so angry she ran back home crying. After hearing about this, her stepmother was also livid with rage and wanted her father to go to the Marquise's manor to settle the score. Father put on a stern face and said, I asked back then, if Jinyu wasn't willing to marry, I'd go apologize and cancel the engagement myself, but you said she could marry. When Jinyu was holding the dowry list, she was overjoyed too. Did you think marrying into a prestigious family would be easy? What is the use of regretting it now? Jinyu just cried, saying, Daddy, the heir is marrying an equal wife? Isn't that a slap in the face to our family? Besides, that Song Shinner is deeply scheming. She feigned illness for all these years, just to marry into the Marquise's manor, and now that she has got what she wanted, Mom, I want to divorce him. I don't care. You have to make the heir cast off that Song Shinner Jiangnuo, and I couldn't be bothered to listen to her weeping and wailing. She should have thought of things like this before marrying into the Marquise's manor. What use is crying now? Father only said. If you want a divorce, that is fine too, but don't come looking for me when you want to get married again in the future. When Jinyu had cried enough and came out, she saw me picking flowers in the courtyard and said furiously, Sister, you have such a scheming mind. You knew full well what the situation was like at the Marquis Wu'an's manor, but to save yourself trouble, you tricked me into marrying in. I looked at her. Marrying into the Marquise's manor was your own choice. You said that once you married in and became the mistress of the house, and later the Marchioness, you were waiting for me to bow my head and pay my respects to you. It is just that you and your mother couldn't let go of the wealth and glory yet. Now you come blaming me for harming you. Just as we were speaking, a servant came to announce, The heir has come to pick up second miss. Gu Shuyu rushed in, saw Jinyu and me, paused for a moment, and looked awkward. Jinyu, why did you suddenly come back to the general's manor? Isn't the 3-day return visit tomorrow? Jinyu let out a hemph and said, By returning to the general's manor, aren't I just making room for you and your little cousin? Ju Shuyu put on an apologetic smile, cajoled and pleaded, and finally coaxed Jinyu back to the Marquise's manor. The news that the heir of Marquis Wu'an married an equal wife on the second day of his wedding instantly spread throughout the capital, coupled with the fact that he used a white sedan chair to pick up the bride the first time. The Ju family has now become thoroughly famous in the capital. Gu Shuyu originally thought this was just a family matter of the Marquise's manor, but unexpectedly the rumors spread so fiercely that even the emperor in the palace heard about it. The marriage between the two families was originally bestowed by the emperor, so him marrying an equal wife on the second day was practically a slap in the emperor's face, a sign of dissatisfaction with the bestowed marriage. So the emperor summoned Gu Shuyu into the palace and scolded him severely, saying his conduct was improper and his virtue lacking, ordering him to reflect at home for half a year. Gu Shuyu returned to the marquise's manor dejectedly, and as soon as he got back to the inner courtyard, he heard screaming coming from inside. It was Song Shiner and Jinyu arguing. He couldn't figure it out. His cousin used to be as gentle as water, but after getting married, her health improved while her temper became petty and suspicious. Every day she would cry to him about how harsh Jinyu was to her and how she skimped on her allowance. And every time Jinyu saw him, she'd say he was favoring a concubine over his wife, that an equal wife is just a concubine too, causing the house to have no peace. She would cry and make a scene, forbidding him from sleeping in Shiner's room, saying he had to wait until she was pregnant before he could touch Song Shiner again, and that he couldn't blur the distinction between the main wife and the concubines. The entire Wu'an Marquis Manor became the biggest laughingstock in the capital overnight. Even when invitations arrived from other households, the two of them would snatch them back and forth, making a complete mess of social engagements. Now, he can't even handle his official duties effectively. His superiors are very dissatisfied with him, saying that if he can't even manage his family affairs, he is unfit for important responsibilities. Before long, the domestic battle between Jinyu and Song Shiner escalated to the matter of heirs. Song Shiner fainted during breakfast and was diagnosed with pregnancy. Now, even the old madam, who was fasting at the temple, rushed back, beaming with joy. She slipped the Gu family's heirloom jade bangle onto Song Shiner's wrist and said with a smile, "If you give birth to a legitimate eldest son for our Marquis Manor, you will be the mistress of the house from then on." Song Shiner leaned into Gu Shuyu's arms and said coquettishly, "I will definitely spread the family line for my husband and bear many more heirs for the Marquis Manor." Jinyu was so angry she gritted her teeth, but she had also learned to be smart. Putting on a virtuous face, she stepped forward and said, "I am now in charge of the household affairs of the Marquise's manor. Since sister is pregnant, I will certainly take good care of her, so that sister can give birth to the Marquise's eldest legitimate son soon." Gu Shuyu breathed a long sigh of relief. "Since Madam is so virtuous and sensible, I can rest assured. I definitely won't treat you poorly in the future. You and Shiner are equally important in my heart." But ever since Song Shiner got pregnant, every day it was either a headache or a fever, or otherwise chest tightness and nausea. She kept Gu Shuyu in her courtyard to keep her company every single day. For 2 whole months, Jinyu didn't even see Gu Shuyu's face. Once Song Shiner had been pregnant for a full 3 months, and the pregnancy was stable, she finally started coming out to walk around. She stroked her belly, as if terrified that people wouldn't know she was pregnant. Jinyu looked at her with a smile on her face, but whispered, "There isn't much difference between an equal wife and a concubine. Even if you give birth to it, it is still just a concubine's son. Besides, it has only been 3 months. Who knows if you'll even be able to birth it?" Song Shiner stroked her belly and looked at her. "It is still better than you, sister. What a pity sister will never have the chance to give birth to her own offspring in the future. No matter how many wives and concubines the Marquis of Wu'an's manor has in the future, there will only be this one and only heir born from me." Jinyu's expression changed. "What do you mean?" Song Shiner smiled without saying a word, but her eyes held a ruthless look. She covered her face with her brocade fan. "So what if you are the legitimate daughter of a general? Your mother raised you to be like a stupid pig, so how can you compete with me?" Only then did Jinyu realize something was wrong. She hurriedly found a doctor to check her pulse. Without her knowing when, she had actually been dosed with sterilization medicine and could never bear children again. Song Shiner naturally wouldn't admit it, crying and whining that her stomach hurt, saying Jinyu was jealous of her pregnancy and was deliberately framing her. Jinyu thought about her words and had the doctor check Gu Shuyu's pulse as well, only to discover that the heir had been drugged too. Once this matter came out, how could Gu Shuyu accept it? he immediately ordered a thorough investigation. Song Shin prided herself on being clever. She hadn't left any evidence, so no one could testify that she was the one who drugged them. But with things as they were, Gu Shuyu didn't need anyone's proof at all. Driven mad with rage, he rushed into Song Shinner's courtyard and choked her by the neck. "I was so good to you, yet you harmed me," Song Shinner said gently. "Cousin, you love me so much, so what if you can't have children? You have the heirs I gave birth to, so you aren't without descendants. The Marquise's manor will be inherited by our child in the future. Isn't that good?" Jinyu was already raised to be spoiled and short-tempered. After hearing she couldn't have children, she went completely mad. That night, she lit a fire and trapped Song, Shinner, and Gu Shuyu inside the courtyard. She locked the main gate from the outside and splashed the entrance with tung oil so no one could get close. The fire burned all night, and when the officials arrived in the morning, there were only 2 bodies inside, burned to charcoal, Song Shinner and Gu Shuyu. Jinyu was very calm, just waiting for the officials to question her. She confessed without hesitation, "My husband favored a concubine over his wife, and the concubine poisoned the mistress, leaving me barren. An eye for an eye. I set fire to the courtyard and surrender myself to the law willingly." When father and I heard the news, we only let out a long sigh. I went to the imperial prison to see her. Jinyu looked completely calm. "Since I was little. Mother taught me to compare myself to you in everything, to be prettier than you, better at embroidery, better at playing the zither, and to marry better. Only now do I realize that everything is fate and nothing is up to us. I set down the pastries. His Majesty took pity on you and didn't hand down a severe punishment. He only ordered you to be exiled to a bitterly cold land, never to return to the capital." After saying this, I left her nanny with her, gave her a large sum of money, turned around, and left. Coming out of the imperial prison, Zhang Nuo was waiting for me by the carriage and helped me up. "Why didn't you tell her that it was father-in-law who pleaded for this chance of survival for her?" I smiled faintly. "It doesn't matter anymore." When stepmother heard Jinyu was being exiled, she said she wanted to accompany her. She begged for a divorce letter, and father has already let her go. For the rest of our lives. Let us each be well.